2024, I cut off my consumption of ultra-processed food, aka UPF. It's totally worth it. But it's not only because it helps me to eat well, I also noticed the other changes in my life that make me feel better and make me want to keep doing it. My name is Hazel, welcome to Amber Spoon channel. To give you the context, I first learned about ultra-processed food from the book Ultra-Processed People by Dr. Tullenken. In his book, he defines UPF as industrial manufactured products that contain ingredients not typically found in home kitchens, such as additives, preservatives, flavorings, and emulsifiers. These foods are designed to be convenient, hyper-palatable, and have a long shelf life. Of course, this is a simplified definition, but it's more than enough for people who are not scientists to use in their daily life. Dr. Chris has a very good video talking about the core information in his book. I will put the link in the description down below in case you don't have the time to read this whole book. And now I want to talk about a few positive influences that creating UPF in the past year brought to me. The first benefit I noticed is that my choice of food shopping become very limited. You may think, well, Hazel, how come these become a benefit? It may sound counterintuitive, but sometimes the problem in our life is that we have too many options. Especially for someone who is super indecisive like me, not exaggerating. I can spend hours in front of the shelves to decide which mayonnaise to buy. With the idea that I cannot buy UPF product, I can filter out a lot of options. Yes, at the beginning you need to spend some time to read the ingredient list and figure out which one is acceptable, but you will get familiar with those acceptable items and brand. And sadly, once you start to read the ingredient list, you will notice that most of the product from the mainstream supermarket are ultra processed. So you can cut down quite a lot of distractor in your grocery shopping exam paper. Is it a bad thing or good thing? Well, I personally think it's a good thing. Let's talk about the benefit number 2. Because of the limited options in supermarkets, I was forced to explore new items. It is fun, it opens my mind and allows me to try new things in a way. We have to admit that branding has strong power. Let's play a game. I name an item, for example, sandwich loaf bread, ketchup, or ice cream, and I bet you have a specific big brand in your mind of these items. Even in the supermarket, the display of the products are designed to showcase these big brands mainly. In the search of non-UPF product, I have to dip deeper into the shelves, and these make it possible for me to meet smaller brands that I never paid attention to. And sometimes I cannot find non-UPF version of the product I want to buy, so I have to move to the internet and search for them. And this is where I met a lot of small manufacturers, and it surprised me that there are so many interesting products out there that we don't usually see in the supermarket. My boyfriend actually once asked me, where did you find this weird product? Well, I'm a girl who cares what she eats a little too much, but I absolutely enjoy it. By the way, I have to point out that I don't mean that all big brands only produce UPF. There are big brands you can see in the supermarkets who provide food that is not ultra processed. So please have a look on the ingredient list to make sure. Another way of my exploration is tutoring my direction to the fresh food, because it is generally easier to find ultra processed food from the fresh section. Well, if one day even an orange is ultra processed, the world has been unimaginably horrible. There are fruit and nuts bars I used to love, and ingredient list, it was quite clean. It's just dry fruit, nuts, sometimes cocoa powder, but it bothered me because they used emulsifier and flavorings. So very reluctantly, I have to stop buying them. Instead, I started to make my own stuffed dates. So essentially it's kind of similar. I put nut butter, cheese, and nuts and seeds into the dates. It was a shame at the beginning to give up the product I used to love so much, but the homemade stuffed dates are delicious, customizable, and it's not that hard to make anyway. So now I don't miss the nuts and fruit bars anymore. Okay, maybe sometimes a little bit, but you get the idea. I can absolutely live without it. And this leads to the benefit number 3. I learned so many recipes. Because I started to buy more fresh ingredients, and because sometimes I just cannot find the product that are non-ultra processed. I have to make them from scratch. It may sound like a job to do, and yes it is, but it is an enjoyable and rewarding one. Firstly, I learned a lot of cooking skills. Although I'm not a professional chef, but more skills will never be a burden to a person. I learned how to make pizza, salad dressings, pies, pastries, and because it is hard to get access to many foods from my hometown, I have to learn everything I crave when I miss home. The moment you put these homemade delicacies in your mouth, after all that hard work, the level of satisfaction is unsurpassed. I have to admit that I love cooking anyway, but I believe the process of getting your hands busy, making something delicious, and gaining a sense of achievement should be the thing that everybody enjoys. Plus, you don't need to make anything complicated. A simple meal can be equally satisfying. Big or small, cooking is still a job. That is true, but it is our responsibilities to feed our body well. I feel like cooking is such an essential life skill that a lot of people nowadays are losing. Again, we don't need to train ourselves into a professional chef and beat everyone in a culinary contest, but knowing how to cook food that nourishes our body and mind is a skill that everyone needs. Moving to the benefit number 4. While all those benefits I've mentioned are more or less related to food, this one, I would say, it changed my life and my mindset in a higher level way. I built a stronger connection with my body, my culture, and people around me. First, I eat whole food, real food, and this allows me to reconnect to my body. This is actually a point from Dr. Chris's book. He says that if you eat whole food, real food, ultra-processed food, you don't really need to worry too much about fat, salt, and sugar, because our bodies have the ability to analyze what we need and send the information to our mind, telling us what we want to eat, avoiding UPF, which causes the information mismatch. I do feel like now I can hear my body better. I stopped craving sugary treats. I am clearer when I'm hungry and how much food I want to eat. I don't control my mind of what to eat, either healthy or not. Instead, my mind tells me what and when to eat serves my body better. It is something that I consider more important than a healthy diet. It is a healthy relationship between the mind and the body. Next, the connection to the culture. This is what I realized when I tried to recreate the traditional food from my hometown, which it is hard for me to get in the UK. But it's not only for people who left their hometown. Think about how easy it is to buy pre-made food from the supermarket. Pre-made lasagna, soup, Yorkshire pudding, gravy, and even a basic loaf of bread. How many of us still know how to make this food that our ancestors have been making for hundreds of years? Would it be one day that all these dishes show our culture, belongingness, and remind us of home, all come from factories? On the journey of recreating all this traditional food to replace their UPF counterparts, I learned so many techniques and stories behind them. Making dumpling wraps from flour and water, mix the filling from meat and vegetable, and wrap the dumplings with my friend and family. And I bet you can imagine how different these homemade dumplings taste like compared to the frozen ones. And thirdly, I start to connect with people around me more. I used to rely on supermarkets so much that I almost get everything from them. The biggest reason is that it is quick and convenient. The stock is stable and it covers almost all the categories. You go in, grab the item, use the machine to check out, and go out. You don't even need to talk to anyone. But last year, I challenged myself to go to the local shops, the veggie shops, the butchers, chocolate shops, and bakeries, etc. more often. And yes, it takes more effort to get everything I need, but there is good side of it as well. I can customize my order with the butchers. Sometimes I want a little part of the roast pork. Sometimes I only want a small cut of beef fillet because they're expensive. And in the veggie shop, I learned how to cook a vegetable that I never handled with. I listened to the funny story how people decide the flavors of the chocolate they sell. And I can give my feedback to the bakers. All of these are things I cannot do in the supermarket. Frankly, supermarkets are still good and I still use them. But if it's not because I want to search for more homemade products, non-ultra processed food, I will miss so many experiences with the local people. I wouldn't have the connection with people around me like now. Quitting UPF really changed my life in a way that not only related to food. I think this is why I love food so much, because it's really just much more than eating. Food is such an important component in our life, physically and culturally and mentally. Quitting UPF, totally worth it. Even it can be a little bit challenging sometimes. Even now, after a year, I still cannot guarantee I can avoid it completely, but I clearly see that it's making positive changes in my life. So I will definitely keep doing it. Tell me in the comment, do you think it's gonna be worth it? And would you like to try to cut down your consumption of UPF?